All right, welcome back to this Thursday morning. It's a blustery morning here in Richmond, Virginia. The weather is not cooperating with us, and the coronavirus, unfortunately, right now is keeping us all separated. So we are doing this virtually. Welcome, Vicky and Frank. During our last conversation, you guys shared your message, which both messages are very inspiring. And if you missed any part of what they shared, you're welcome to go to perfusion-consulting.com or find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube and catch the interview in its entirety. So, Vicky, we'll do reverse of what we did during the last show, and let's start with Frank, and then see how you follow up uh, with him.
Yeah.
Right? We're
Yeah.
we're gonna let
Pressure's
Frank
on.
we're gonna let Frank set the bar, and then you get to follow him. So, Frank, welcome again,
Thank you.
and tell us a little bit about yourself, your mission, and what would you like us to learn today.
Yes. And Vicky, follow this. I've
I'm here
often said
for it.
that to, yeah, I'm a comedian. I've been a comedian full time professionally since the day after Christmas 1985. Occasionally somebody will say to me, tell me about yourself. Well, I'm a comedian. No, not what you do, who you are. Well, at the risk of being redundant, every fiber of my being, I am a comedian. And I am a suicide prevention and mental health awareness speaker. And I live with two mental illnesses. One's called major depressive disorder, better known as depression, relatively common. And this is something I want to get out there today because, and you'll see why in a minute, I have something called chronic suicidal ideation.
Mm.
It's relatively rare. I've had clinicians stare at me like Kim Kardashian at the New York Times crossword puzzle when I mentioned that. And and what it means is for me and people in my tribe, the option of suicide is always on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And when I tell the audience small, I mean 3 years ago my car broke down. I had three thoughts unbidden. One, get it fixed. Two, buy a new one. Three, I could just kill myself. That's chronic
Mm,
suicide. It's a coping mechanism. The upside of that, Vicky and Chris, is this. Every keynote I've given since 2014, there's been somebody in the audience who has chronic suicidal ideation, and they have no idea it has a name. They don't know it's a thing. They think they're just some kind of freak and all alone. I did a college show because I do it as a suicide prevention as a college health and safety issue. And a young woman came up afterwards. She goes, thank you for your keynote. I said, you're welcome. She goes, but I got to tell you, it made me weep. How did it make you weep? She goes, well, you know your story about the car? Get it fixed, buy a new one, kill yourself? I go, yeah. She goes, I've been having those thoughts all my life. I had no idea it had a name. I just thought I was some kind of freak. And when I heard you say that out loud, I realized for the first time in my life, I am not alone, and I wept. And that has happened every time. I mean, not everybody cried, but that's happened every time. I was talking to a woman the other day who is an admin for a podcast, and I described that to her. She goes, oh, dear God, I've had those thoughts all my life. It has a name? And the relief is
mm,
palpable. So, suicide prevention, given my background, generational depression and suicide in my family. Grandmother died by suicide, mother found her, great aunt died by suicide, my mother and I found her. I was 4 years old. I screamed for days. And then, of course, I came very close in 2010. It is my passion and my purpose. I go to bed thinking about it. I wake up thinking about it. Somebody said, how did you pick suicide as a topic to talk about? Well, the topic picked me. It is just something. Now, Vicki, since you work with young people, my third TEDx talk is called let's see, mental health, mental with benefits, the evolutionary, write that down, mental benefits, the evolutionary advantage. It may just say the evolutionary advantage of mental illness on YouTube. And I wrote it for young people, and here's why. Here's how it starts out. What if those of us with mental illness are not living with a genetic mutation, but an amazing evolutionary adaptation? And what if mental illness is, as Malcolm Gladwell says of such things in his book David and Goliath, a desirable disadvantage? And what if we could convince a young person Sure, you have a mental disability, but here's what people never tell you. You may have some mental abilities that your peers cannot touch. I believe it would reduce stigma and bullying and perhaps youth suicide in the long run by reframing mental illness as a combination of mental illness and mental ableness. Reframe it for the young person, reframe it for their peers. That was the purpose of doing the TEDx talk. And I told them about my two mental illnesses. And I said, look, I do not believe I'm broken. I believe I was made this way. I believe my depression and thoughts of suicide are simply the flip side of my creativity, imagination, and comic ability. Because I can teach you to write stand up, I can teach you to perform stand up. I cannot teach you to process the incoming information the way I do. And I think that's one of my superpowers. That's why, it's it I yeah, I mean, it has to, don't you think depression, suicide one half, comic ability and what do you call it, creativity the other, same wiring, same brain. And I did it for kids because, if you have a mental illness, you're different. But then again, Harry Potter's different, but he has some special abilities. What kid doesn't want to be Harry Potter? So anyway, that was TED Talk number 3. I've done 6 of them. I'm pitching my 7th right now. So, and each one builds my brand as a suicide prevention speaker. And occasionally somebody says to me, "A comedian, does that hold you back? Do people not book you to speak on suicide because you're a comedian?" No, just the reverse, Vicky. They want the lived experience. They want the learning objective, the able tos and how tos, and the fact that I can do it with some organic, tasteful, personal humor makes it just that much more appealing. It makes it easier to digest 45 minutes of death and dying if you can leaven it a bit. And also, Vicky, I believe people have in their mind what mental illness looks and sounds like. They picture the guy on the corner with a sign, "We'll work for food."
Right.
When they see me up there, high functioning, wrote jokes for Jay Leno for 20 years, stand up comedian full time for 35, it changes their perception of mental illness. And I believe if you can change perception, you can change prejudices. And so
I mean, 100%.
that's why I do what I do. And I tell my TEDx coaching students, "Well, what's my passion?" I got a couple of them. I go, "Let's do this. Pretend I came over to your house and you're sound asleep. And I wake you from a sound sleep and go, give me 15 minutes on anything. Whatever comes out of your mouth, that is the thing that makes the hair on your arm stand up, makes your heart sing." That's what I'm always looking for with a speaker, like Chris. I mean, he eats, breathes, and sleeps hope. And when he said to me, "I'm a hope dealer," I said, "Stop right there. That's a phrase I've never heard. I hope you have the URL for that." So anyway, that's
now.
yeah. You didn't have it at the time, did you?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I do
See,
now.
that's what I do, Vicky. I just point out the obvious. So anyway, that's what I do and why I do it. And I feel like I'll leave you with this. I feel like George Bailey from the movie It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
In that I've seen what people's lives might be like.
I think we lost Frank's
Audio,
sound.
yeah.
Yeah.
You guys hear me? No? No?
Oh,
Yeah,
no,
we can now.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Right when you were talking about George Bailey, too. Nope, it went out again.
Nope, he's out again.
And just use the mic on the. There we go. Can you guys hear me now?
We can, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hang on, let me crank it up. Can you hear me now?
Good.
We can.
Yeah. I can't hear you guys for some reason. That's strange. Well, being a Boy Scout, I have another headset.
Now, always prepared. Can you hear us?
Yes, I have. That's why I carry.
Yeah, perfect.
That's why I carry 2 headsets. Okay, I feel like people ask me why I haven't killed myself. It's a good question to ask somebody who is depressed and suicidal but hasn't got a real detailed plan. Well, tell me why not. So one of my why nots is why don't I don't kill myself is I feel like George Bailey and It's a Wonderful Life. Because these people keep coming up after my speeches, and I've enlightened them to the fact that what they have is a thing. Chronic suicidal ideation. Lots of us out there, and I feel like if I kill myself, there'd be a lot of people who never got a chance to hear me simply say that. And so perhaps I would take some of them with me if I died by suicide. So that's one of my why nots is that I can't abandon those people that I might have helped along the way.
Oh, Vicky, I don't know. I think you're up to the challenge, but wow, what a bar! What a bar Frank has set for you. So,
Well, I love that bar because, one of the things that I immediately recognized when Frank was talking was, the use of the strengths perspective. Every single person that is on this earth comes to the table with a different and unique strength. And the fact that we all have different ones, right? Everybody has different abilities. Everybody has different perspectives, how we interpret the information around us in the world and then how we use it. Right. Everybody is different. And if we only have people who are the exact same in the room making decisions, we are not going to create a world that is safe, that is supportive, that is inclusive for everyone. We're just not going to be able to do it. And so, I really appreciate, Frank, who you are and what you do every single day, because it's so critical. And I'll tell you, we already working with young folks. I mean, in the city of Richmond in itself, students are, you experience your typical teen, angst, depression, anxiety, things like that. But living in, an area like the city of Richmond, our teens also experience things like higher rates of community violence, school shutdowns, things like that. And so having, cumulative trauma or a traumatic experience in your lifetime is significantly increased. And so, one of the big things that we focus on all of our programming, right? Whether it's, we're going in for, our STEAM machine, our STEM literacy, or we're going in for financial literacy, or we're going in for mass communication or prose or poetry, right? It doesn't matter. When we go in, every single workshop uses a trauma-informed community building approach, because you never know what a young person's experience is. You never know where they're coming to the table. And I'll tell you, being a writing and communication organization, you write about what you know first.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I myself am a social worker, and it was very important to me that, and to everybody that's part of the Podium, family and team, that we create that space, because every year you absolutely will have students that will share, I had this experience when I was young. I had a sibling, but they, were killed, and I don't have them anymore. There's so much that our young folks are carrying with them. I don't have, I just spent 15 months in virtual learning, and I don't have a supportive home to learn in. So I don't feel like I'm coming back to school in person with any sort of preparation. Right. And that's a story for so many young folks. And so, Frank, I really connected with what you say and what you do, because it's the space that we try to cultivate in Podium as well. Right. Because everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a perspective. Everybody's got their own mentality that creates that unique perspective, that creates that strength, that creates that ability that was missing. And just personally, I think a lot of times, because of the way that we create standards on our society, whether it's cultural standards, whether it's, standards of technology, a lot of times I think we create, disabilities, right? There are some abilities that, that are not, you can't help. But in a lot of ways, the fast pace, right? The pace of our society, it creates 50 years ago folks who would be, considered completely, typical. And I put that in quotations because what does that even mean? But, people who would be kind of functioning just regularly, but today, with all the technology, with all the fast pace, not everybody can keep up. And is that now a disability, or is that now a different ability than it was 50 years ago? Yeah. Right. And so I think a lot of times the fact that we hold each other to different standards, right, where there's a public and a private sphere, and they must be separate, right? And because and medical and our ability and our mental health all must be put in that, private sphere. It can't be talked about in a public space. At Podium, I used to tell my students when I was programs director, hey, y'all, I'm leaving early because I got to go to my therapy appointment, because I wanted to normalize that, because it's important for you to get your thoughts out and share that with somebody to help you build coping skills and mechanisms, right? And it goes back to communication, right? You have to be able to healthily communicate with others, and to do so in a way where you're confident with who you are and what you have to say. So that's my tie-in from Frank to Podium. I mean, we focus on critical thinking skills, on skill development. We focus on self-confidence, ownership of your own voice. In fact, after participation in our programs this past year, we do surveys. 100% of our middle schoolers felt better at sharing with others. They felt more confident in themselves. They felt safe and supported by our instructors. They felt included in all activities. And so that's really important for us to create year after year. You know, it's that community that we build to support our students. It only takes one person, right? It only takes one person to believe in you, to sit and really listen to your story, to say, you know what? There's more than one option out there. Success looks like more than one thing. So for me, that's why I joined Podium. I actually joined Podium. I was 18 myself, just moved to Richmond. I, was at VCU in undergrad. I went to a meeting and they were like, hey, come hang out. This is year 2 of Podium. We do writing workshops with the kids after school, helping create, the safe. And so it was a very different version of what, we were back in year 2, not in year 13. So we hadn't gotten all of our messaging, all of our, what we actually do out there yet. But yeah, I was like, gosh, this is so exciting. I want to help build, the space for our students, for our teens. And I did 3 years after school at Armstrong High School, running a weekly program. I fell in love. I helped students apply to college for the first time when, they didn't have anybody to say, hey, can you look over my personal statement? Hey, how do you sign up for SATs? Really simple things that, in some areas you get that, those resources. And so you take it for granted. Right. And then you get to other schools where you don't have those resources necessarily. And so you have to be willing to step outside the box and say, I'm bringing this to the table. And that's why writing and communication doesn't matter who you are or what you do. You need these skills, and you need them for, yourself, your mind, but you also need it for your heart, your emotions, for your ability to have relationships that are healthy with others. So I hope I did a good job kind of following up with, a little bit of what we do.
that was perfect as usual.
Oh.
So.
Well, and Vicki, couple things. The parallel I think for me is that when I began writing my first TEDx talk on suicide prevention, I didn't know a lot about it, and the local Chamber of Commerce called and said, listen, our speaker bailed out for tomorrow. Would you come in and do 20 minutes? And I said, if you'll let me do a dress rehearsal of my TEDx. And I'm sure they thought I was going to do stand up. So I go in and I just buried my face in my notes, fired the PowerPoint behind me. And when I got done, I looked up, they're all standing and half of them are crying. And then I thought to myself, oh boy, I think I struck a nerve. And then a half a dozen of them came up to me individually after that. Each one had a story. What I discovered was that even though one person dies by suicide every 9 minutes in the U.S., hardly anybody talks about it unless you bring it up, which I'm sure works. You're giving people permission to give voice to their feelings and experiences without recrimination. I tell my students who speak on mental health at Keynote, you need to allow an extra half an hour when you get done, because there's probably going to, and whether it's domestic abuse or, intimate partner violence or trauma, you better allow a half an hour, because there are going to be people who want to speak to you individually. And people have told me things in that individual, moment after my speech that I'm sure they've never told anybody else, including their therapist. So what you and I do, and the Podium does, is give people permission to give voice to those experiences and feelings surrounding whatever it happens to be. Now, I've got a client. If you write this down, Vicki, her name is Barbara Connolly, Connolly. Is that Connolly? Connolly. Barbara Connolly. If you go to YouTube and type in Barbara Connolly TEDx, she had one of the 50 top TEDx talks this year, 2021. And she is a college counselor, and she talks about, landing a good college for youth, and gives techniques in the talk. So if you're helping young people fill out applications, and if you want me to put you in touch with her, I imagine she'd be willing to do some of that pro bono if you have students that are, you know, that are short on funds. She got all four of her kids got offers to go to the Ivy League schools.
Wow.
Yeah, one went to Michigan, go Big Blue,
Mm.
but got an offer to go, and it was a very simple process, and she has repeated that process over and over and over and over. We actually created something, Vicky. We talked about helicopter parents,
Mm,
hovering over the kids, bulldozer parents or snowplow parents. They push everything that's difficult out of the way. She goes,
mm.
Frank, that's no, I don't, that's just doesn't fit. Here's what my day looks like sometimes. They drag a kid in there in the 11th grade. I want him to go to an Ivy League school, have done no preparation whatsoever. And I said, you know what, Barbara? They're tow truck parents. They drag this wreck into your office and want you to help. And I said, and that might not be a bad way of parenting. You don't hover, you don't push. You're just like AAA. You're there always. And then when you need them, you call them and they show up. So she's going to write a book actually called Tow Truck Parents. So
Very cool.
Very
anyway,
interesting.
that's I think where our what we do dovetails is we give people permission
Yeah.
and encourage them to give voice to their feelings and experiences without any sort of recrimination. And because then they attract other people who have similar issues and build a tribe
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
realize they're not alone.
Mhm.
Anyway, I applaud what you do and be happy to support it. In any way that I can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we got to start cooking on this podium TEDx
Yeah,
podium. I think we
yeah.
should make that one happen. I'm happy to
It
volunteer for that one too.
feels like a solid goal for
It
2022. So I will be following up with both of you on that. Absolutely.
sounds good.
Yeah,
One of the go ahead, Frank.
and you, Vicky, you get to pick the theme for the talk, and it'll be something. You get to choose a theme. You get to choose the speakers, and it is a little labor intensive. So do set up, get a committee around you,
Okay.
and be prepared to get a couple hundred applications that you weed through. And I think they usually select auditioners like 4 dozen. But Chris, you didn't have to audition for either one of those talks, did you?
It was a short 30-minute um, walkthrough of my idea.
Okay.
Not necessarily an audition, just kind of a recap. Of, why it's an important message, who it applies to, and what I hope the audience to learn. And then that was kind of it. So it wasn't like I had to do an impromptu stand-up
Yeah, that's
recap
right.
of yeah. So and because of Frank's guidance, I pre-made some videos that I sent along with my applications, so that people would understand who I am and what I'm trying to do before they ever talk to me. So it makes the conversation a little easier, and they can ask very meaningful, specific questions about what I want to present. So
Okay,
uh,
and Vicky, here's the videos were great. They were professionally done. Uh, and but Chris sent them to me. And Hope Dealer is, I mean, that's the hook. That's the sticky item. And I think in one of the videos he didn't mention it, so I said, look, you need to use a video where you mention Hope Dealer. And then he had some stuff at the end of one. I believe he should open up a pitch like that or a speech with questions. What if
mhm.
you could change the world in 5 minutes a day? I mean, I'm not going to stop the video right there. I want to know how that works. So it's a combination, Vicky, of what you do. It's both the written, because we worked it out in writing first, and then spoken on video.
Right.
TEDx is not just about talking. You got to write the speech first, and then you do the video. So yeah, I think what you do and what I do very similar in that way.
And I
All right.
think it'd be a wonderful opportunity. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'd like to see some kids from some underserved communities to be able to share their experience in a confident and useful way, so that they have a sense that what they're doing is going to help someone else. Because when we help other people, it makes us feel good, and that shouldn't be the only reason that we do it, but it is that a confidence builder for them also, helping
Oh my
others. And
gosh, yeah.
yeah,
And
so
if we're going to include, Vicky, a trans person,
mhm,
because trans youth have, they 10 times the trans 40% of trans youth seriously consider
mhm.
suicide. 4% of their binary peers. So it's by a factor of
Mm.
10.
And yeah.
I think we
So
need to
Frank,
get that.
I am the co-chair of Glisten Richmond, which is an LGBTQIA youth advocacy and education organization, and so that's a passion
Great.
of mine, and so absolutely 100%. And
It's
I
all
like
it's all it's
it's
all
all
coming
connected.
together. I mean,
And
this thing is writing itself. So
shout out for the
we're
inclusivity of our LGBTQIA plus community. I appreciate that, Frank.
we
You're
are
welcome.
we are down to just a couple minutes.
Ooh,
So if you guys could recap your contact information and answer the question, what gives you hope, in about a minute or less. So
Vicky,
Vicky,
you're on.
you're up.
okay, so I actually came prepared. So I know that you love that question. What gives you hope? And so I
That's right.
brought a youth quote with me today. And so
Awesome.
one of the very last programs we had before COVID shut down, we were meeting in person. This was a student from John Marshall High School. And it's not the full piece, just a little quote, but I wanted to share this because this brings me hope, and I hope it will bring you hope too. Quote, in my generation and at my school, there is peer pressure, self-doubt, and people constantly telling you you're not good enough or you can't do it. When you are so familiar with those words, they become a part of you, and you can use them to either build or break yourself. I chose to build myself through words. I perceived them differently when said to me, and because of my choice, I became unstoppable, determined, and hungry for education and success. And I love that because, we all are in environments, we're all in particular situations. And just like Frank said earlier, how can we reframe to empower ourselves to find our strengths and to find our voice? Connect with us at Podium, podiumrva.org, or if you want to email us, info@podiumrva.org. I check that every day. So definitely, come be part of the writing revolution with Podium.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
Yes, and forgive me, you're going to need to edit this out. Oh no, I had to cut my car on because my battery's dying. Okay, here's what gives me hope. And I tell my audience is this. 8 out of 10 people who are suicidal are ambivalent. 9 out of 10 give hints in the last week leading up to an attempt, which means you can make a difference, you can save a life, and you can do it by doing something as simple as what we are doing right here, and that is starting the conversation.
Absolutely.
All right. And Frank, how do we get in touch with you?
I'm in the witness protection program. You cannot. No, you
Seems
can
like a
go
bad
to.
business model.
Yeah, especially for a speaker. Speaking from a bunker, go to or as Vicky would tell you in North Carolina, the mental health comedian, all spelled out, thementalhealthcomedian.com, and all my phone number, my social media, all of it's there.
All right. Thank you both so much for joining me today. And I look forward to the return of both of you in the months coming. So thank you. Have the great rest of your week, and we'll catch you the next time.